Hello, my name is Christopher Kazera. I'm a member of cohort 29 in Wilmington University's Higher Education Leadership Program. The purpose of this evaluation is a self-assessment of my year two work in light of the NASPA competencies and changes to my professional development plan. So it's sort of a companion to the PowerPoint presentation, but what I did was I listed all 10 of the NASPA competencies and provided a snapshot of projects that have been accomplished or are in various stages of development. And my evaluation of myself finds me, I think, in an intermediate level. I would rate myself as intermediate in both leadership and social justice and inclusion, largely because in light of the year that we just had, I've become more attuned to a style of leadership that's not accustomed to dictating to other people what their experiences are. I think that listening is an extreme art form, and that requires a steep education in history, in the humanities. I do, and even in psychology. So I've fallen back on history and humanities and literature and the arts a lot this past year, specifically in terms of how the human animal processes information, how they make sense of things, and what they need in terms of, to go Maslow hierarchy of needs, and how to craft a leadership style that cultivates a culture of being receptive to that. And I think empathy really comes into play. I don't feel comfortable saying I'm proficient in that yet. Although the other competencies, I give myself an advanced rating, and I hope that when the committee or whoever it is who would be evaluating sees how I put it together, you can see the artifacts and portfolio and the descriptions. I've had some depth there across the board, but I'm not where I want to be yet with that, and I don't know if I will be anytime soon. If I'm being honest about that. The factors that contributed to my growth and development on a big scale were Guided Studies 2 and 3. Guided Study 2 was on national tutoring trends, and Guided Study 3 was on qualitative methods with Dr. Salas for tutoring trends and Dr. Buchanan for qualitative methods. I did a lot of work on self-placement and diagnostic measures. I was on many committees at our CBC, Rowan College of Burlington County, because our conventional means of placement testing, where a student would go into campus and take the test, was compromised. So we had to determine or tap into research-driven best practices about how students could place themselves in an open admissions institution while still maintaining some semblance of academic integrity. We did a lot of work. I did a lot of work developing embedded tutoring and library initiatives inside all of our Blackboard course shells. And I was tapped to represent our CBC on a statewide committee of general education, trying to evaluate the Associates of Arts programs and reduce the gen ed courses in these programs across the state from 46 to 47 to 33 to 36 thereabouts. So that required doing work on our CBC's end and then taking that to the committee with other colleagues from other schools and trying to find some sort of middle ground. My PowerPoint gets into detail about this, but I did make some changes to my philosophy of leadership. Certainly, the ultimate goal there that I'm striving for now is to balance a need for individual freedom and peaceful coexistence of all campus agents to create both a culture of safety and efficiency. I go into further detail about updates to my 1 to 3 year goals and 4 to 5 year goals. And with regard to program competency growth, my PDP has broken down for the past 2 iterations, AER, assessment, evaluation, and research, law, policy, and governance, and values, philosophy, and history. And I explain where I think I've made significant gains there. And I do think that with regard to the values, philosophy, and history, my Guided Study 2 was probably the biggest component of that, and I hope the PowerPoint explains that. And with regard to AER, my work with the General Education Coordinating Committee was pretty big in that regard. I do enjoy membership now in the College Reading and Learning Association, CRLA, which has become very helpful for research purposes towards my dissertation. I've also made updates to the dissertation's topic goals. I have a whole new set of research questions now, and that was largely due to my work in Guided Study 3 with Dr. Buchanan, where I solidified my methods, and I found with a better idea of what the methods were, I was able to bring in my people at RCBC who would be instrumental in helping me to flesh that out even further. And ultimately, you know, they have to say in what I do, but by having a solid understanding of method, I was able to solidify my pitch to them that much better. Key resources are my primary chair, Dr. Davis, Matthew Davis, Dr. Stephanie Lobiando, who's been instrumental in PCRs 1 and 2, providing essential commentary and feedback on chapters 1 through 3. One of my mentors at RCBC, Dr. Donna Vandegrift, Associate Dean of Liberal Arts, and RCBC's Dean of Student Success, Dr. Kathy Briggs, who works under Dr. Karen Archambault, our Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Success. They asked very, very good questions as I was developing this project, making the pitch to them, determining how I could get them data that was research driven from an empirical study, but still informed with reputable, aggregable, and data driven research. And also to give them stuff that could be of use to RCBC going forward. And I think that really the pandemic, in our case, is forcing us to think about how tutoring, or if tutoring, can be provided just as efficiently in digital formats, in synchronous digital formats, as it would be in an in-person setting, because space is certainly a commodity, and hopefully my research can continue to develop that void or fill that void. For leadership reflections, I go into detail in the presentation, but I think that the question that really stood out to me was, what impact is your leadership having on your current institution? And I think there's something to be said of creating and maintaining a culture and nourishing students and employees who are currently in various stages of onboarding back to campus life. And my opportunity to be a leader in that regard is trying to appeal to many different campus agents, students, faculty, staff, to try to, in their journey back to campus, give them a sense of safety and understanding. So that's probably the most prominent reflection that I've experienced. Goals for year 3, to conduct my research, to get all of the paperwork aligned, HSRC on Wilmington's end, the IRB paperwork for RCBC, to have information sessions, to bring in the tutors to explain my study, to do all of the appropriate consents, and that's for the dissertation work in its own right. Another goal is to begin attending meetings with the New Jersey Tutor Administration Group under Dr. Charles Haas at Mercer, who originates that, and to go to at least 2 to 3 meetings over the next 6 months, or the first 6 months of the next academic year, to get an understanding of where the trends are going and how they're continuing to develop in light of pandemic-induced remote operations. To continue chapters 4 and 5 of my dissertation, and to fortify the document, and to begin discussions about how it can be of some practical use to RCBC going forward. Those are my goals for year 3. Year 2 conclusions. I go into detail in the presentation, but some prominent ones would be that my increased productivity is not necessarily, or was not necessarily, a marker of increased health and wellness. I really had to rediscover what my boundaries were. Being at home certainly means that productivity can expand and exceed, but not at the expense of sleep or nourishment or exercise or things like that. So having to scale back, I think, was very important. Another interesting element of conclusion, I guess you can call it, is, and I share this with cohort mates, but I don't want to necessarily speak for them, it's hard to put into language or a vocabulary what the experiences are of the program as they're going on. I think projects like this are helpful because it does force me to slow down and try to determine or find a language for it. But I find that being really wrapped up at a very, very, very high level of work, it does not make it easy to pull back and try to find that language I've told many family members and friends who've asked how the program's been. I don't have a language for it just yet, but maybe after. But in the during, it's not necessarily where it needs to be for me to speak clearly about it. So that, in a nutshell, is my overview. I hope that the portfolio artifacts and descriptions go into greater detail, and the PowerPoint does as well. The updated PDP has my updated versions from this past year in green. I welcome feedback, commentary, and I wish you all well. Thank you.